Man, that was so good. God is gruntled with you, and there's no line, right? There's no separation, there's no line. I love that whole idea. Because the lines are what we invent. We create them. And it's interesting, so when you're, I want to talk about empire and kingdom a little bit. You'll hear more about it in the breakouts from the people that are speaking in the breakouts. But when we're thinking about the book of Genesis, which I want to talk about, there's the word in there, God is separating. You see that word in there. He's separating. And then later you'll see the English word separate as a reference to sin. Sin is separating from God or separating from yourself. And the actual Greek for sin is harmatia, and ha is the prefix, which means no or non. And the root, which is actually the word mateos, I know there's Bible scholars in here, so is, check me out on this, because we've already had some discussions, is the root word is being. So the word hamartia means to non-be, to not be, or non-being. And so when you read a verse like using that word, the soul that sinneth, it shall die, which one of my mom's favorite verses to teach us as kids. So that's one you want to work in on early in life. It helps you dream. Ruins your imagination, as Kim was talking about. The soul, and what the verse is saying is, when you see that word separation, is the soul that's drifting into non-being will die. That's what it means. And so there's that word. So when you're reading in Genesis, two things are happening with the English idea of separate. One is boundaries. God is setting boundaries when he separates the water from the land, right? And what he's doing is putting everything in its right identity and telling it, stay there. And as long as you all stay, all of creation, in your right identity, this thing is beautiful. But not just the land and the sea, but Adam and Eve. Stay in the truth of who and what God made you to be, and do not cross the boundary. That's such a beautiful idea. It's a relief. It's I love how Derek introduced me, because the only gift I have for you is to untie knots. That's all I have to offer. And what a relief. Because someone asked me yesterday, how do you all keep the travel schedules you do, and how do you do the different projects you do? And the answer to that is because I know that no matter what we're doing, all I'm doing is untying knots. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So people can say, hey, can you come do a youth retreat? Sure. What am I going to talk about? Untying knots to young people. Can you do a marriage retreat? Donna's like, we don't do those. And I'm like, yeah, we do. We're getting ready to do one. And Donna's like, are we attending or speaking? Because attend, I see, we should, but but in any, so all I can do is untie knots, and Donna's a timeless life giver, and so when we're together speaking, I'm untying knots and she's pouring life into the person. That's what we're doing together, that's all we do.
Yeah.
And God said, when I join that together, untying knots and the timeless life giver, don't let anyone separate that. It's not about being married, it's that level. So then, so when I go into a vocation, whatever it is, your vocation, the thing that happens is the person well, I'm this, I have my family life, and then I have my work life. No, you don't. So my greatest gift to my kids as a parent is to untie their knots. That's why I have those kids. And if you ask them, how good of a parent was Jamie? Don't ask him that, please. But what they'll say is, he untied our knots. That's what he did. And we're so grateful. And in our relationship, mine and Donna's, my gift to her is untie her knots. And she's a timeless life giver to me, and that's what we do. So simple, right? That's all it is. What happens is we won't stay inside those boundaries. And we gotta, it's like, oh great, you untie knots. Yeah, but are you a good Christian parent? Now we're like, what is that? We don't know. All we know is you're not. That's really all we know about that, what that is. Whatever it is, you're missing it. So, or Christian family, or these words that make you go outside where you belong, looking for something that you're not supposed to look for. Yeah. And when you do that, you move into non-being sin. You're not being who he made you to be. Does that make sense to everybody? Such a relief. I don't know how much more relief God can give us. And so there's boundaries, and then there's the descent into non-being. And so when Jesus dies on the cross, what is happening at Calvary, and we were talking this last night about being saved. Are you saved? Are you sozoed? Are you rescued? From what? From sin. From what? From the descent into non-being. That's what Jesus is rescuing us from. Like you're a creature. That's what you've turned into as a creature. And what does a creature do? It self-protects and self-promotes. And it gets its identity from what it has, what it does, and what people think about it. A human being doesn't do that. Doesn't need to. I already have it. There's nothing to go acquire. Right? And so when Eve's in the garden, this is Tolkien all the way with the Hobbit, right? And Gollum, it's a former Hobbit. That used to be a Hobbit. What does it do now? It chases power. It's obsessed with career and appetites, and it's lost its hobbitness. It's lost its humanity. And so when Eve is in the garden talking to the creature, the serpent, the creature, she's talking to a non-human who's inviting her to give up her humanness and become a creature. That's it. And it's called the lie. The lie. The lie. And Paul's like, listen, you're not wrestling against flesh and blood in this thing. You're wrestling against the lie. Right. Where is the lie? It's everywhere. Yeah. It's principalities. It's powers. It's spiritual wickedness in high places. Mm-hmm. It's government systems. It's all of it is the lie. And the invitation of the lie is to leave your humanity and dehumanize and become creatures. And so when we look at our culture, it's dehumanized. And when you dehumanize, you can't create. You can imitate, you can counterfeit, but you can't create anything original. And so then you're in a society of just endless repetition. That doesn't work, it's never worked, but we're going to do it again. We're just going to keep doing it because we've lost our humanity. When you humanize anybody, they have a chance at redemption. As soon as they become human, there's a chance. But as long as they're dehumanized, there's no chance. Does that make sense, everybody? So when you're, it's almost impossible to be on social media or watch the news where there's any humanity involved at all. It's all dehumanized. It's them, those people, that group, no humans involved. And so we don't have to love them, that's for sure. And we can easily kill them. Easy. We're watching the world do it. Just kill them all. Why? They're not human. Can you imagine looking at Christ and telling him someone he created is not human, and you're going to kill him. We've decided, we've voted, and decided their life's not worth it. To the one who died to stop our descent into people that think that's the way to think about things. It's frightening to me. So, there is no line. So that's across the board. So when we think about like what we're going to think about today, my question is, what's the matrix? What's the metric? What's the measurement of success? And how, before we get into this, because today we're going to talk about strategy and doing, and you're going to be with amazing doers, for sure. But if you ask every one of them I know, what's your metric of success? I think I know what they'll all say. How do we know that what we're doing is successful? Not even from a kingdom perspective, just from a human perspective. Why is what you're doing meaningful? How do you measure it? And Jeff over here, Jeff and Leon, who are leading one of them. This is what Jeff would say, and he's certainly got the credentials to talk about success in the business world and all that. He would just look at me, which he's done many times, or groups, business meetings, and he would just look and he would go, you know what? People are dying. Isn't that what he said? That's what he says all the time. It's like, what are the business? And he's like, people are dying. What are we talking about? So that'll shut down the discussion in the boardroom. People are dying. What are we doing? No, but like they said, there's no line. That doesn't mean, we got to get over on this humanitarian side. No, it's like my identity works in any vocation. It's not in church. It's like in anywhere I go. The only gift you have to the world is your identity. And why do you need to give that to the world? Because the world is dying. And they need your identity to be rescued. In what vocation? Whatever you're in. But if you don't think of it that way, the lie will own you, and you will be a creature. And you will be doing creaturely things, of course. So, my measurement of success, and so Jonathan, who's going to also talk, the CEO of Osler Media, we decided, and what we're doing together is every person that comes in contact with and this is a for-profit company, we want to be able to say, with evidence, with proof, that the people that are involved in what we're doing are being transformed. Not maybe, not we hope so, they are, and we can see it, and they know it. That's our goal. So is that possible? If you can't use, as Mitch talked about, you can't use Christian language. And what we say is, that's true, we call it neutral language, whatever, but what we're using is human language, not creature language. And people can tell. Why, you don't sound like a creature, you sound like a human. That's unusual. We don't know how to respond as a human to what you just said because we don't know that language. We grew up in the lie. We know the language of the lie. Do you understand that? And so we have little kids already speak the lie. They know the empire language. They learn it really young and they become very fluent in it in elementary school. And it doesn't matter if they're in a Christian school, private school, home school, public school, it's the language of the empire. The empire doesn't care where you are. Because the empire also knows there's no line. Do you think because you're out in the empire and you come in here, that the empire isn't in here? This is the first place Jesus started casting out demons. Right here. Not only are you speaking the lie is saying it here. And you can't even tell. That's the remarkable thing. One time, many times, but I was in a church staff meeting, and I was listening to them talk and pray together. And after it was all over, I asked them, how long has Satan been running your staff meetings? Because everything you all said in here, Jesus would never say.
Yeah.
He wouldn't pray like this. He wouldn't talk like this. He wouldn't say the things about you that you say about yourself. He wouldn't say any of this. And they look at me like, are you being sarcastic? No. What? Not fully. But it's true. And when we introduce ourselves and when we say things, you're speaking the language of the empire. But we don't know because we don't have another language. We have these cliches of Christianity that we throw in, but it's not kingdom language. It's like you have to go and learn to be fluent in kingdom language. And so when you're talking to a person, it's when Jesus is talking about, I am the way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can access the reality of who that is unless you come through me or understand me. Why? Because you wouldn't know how to even talk about it. You wouldn't. Your view of that is empire. And you were raised to think that way, probably in religion. And we're afraid of the tyrannical king who's super disappointed in you most of the time. Because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. How do you change the view of that? Jesus. That's what Jesus means. It's like if you think the Father is whacking people because they're opposed to you, you don't know God.
Yeah.
If you think God favors some people over other people, you don't know God. Even Peter was like, oh. When he didn't want to go to Cornelius' house because he's a dirty Roman occupying Gentile. And I can't go. Cornelius has one vision from God and says, I'll do it. Peter has 3. And he's still, I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
Because he's weaponized the Torah against other people.
Yeah.
And even God can't get through his understanding of the Bible. Wow, there's a whole seminar right there. My Muslim friend, who's an imam of a mosque in Jordan, he was reading this. I gave him the story of Cornelius to read, and he's reading. You know that story in Acts, the Roman, and it says he's a man of God, and he prays, and he gives alms to the poor, and he fears God. It says, and my Muslim friend is reading that passage in Acts, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, this guy's a Muslim! I didn't know there were Muslims in the New Testament." Then I said, because I'm so good at this stuff, I said, he's not a Muslim. I shot him down immediately. And I go, he's not a Muslim. I said, he's actually Italian. I don't know why you even said that. And my Muslim friend goes, we have Italian Muslims. And so, because the description of Cornelius is the description of a devout Muslim. It's like God kind of thought of that. That a Muslim might read this and go, that's me.
Yeah.
But I had to, we're going to correct that though. We're not going to let some Muslims say that they identify with a Bible character from our book. So he reads that, and then he reads about Peter, and he said, oh, here's the Christian. And I said, why do you think he's a Christian? He doesn't want to go be with the Muslim.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. This guy wants to hear what he doesn't know. This guy doesn't want to tell him because he's dirty. Wow. Duly chastised. Like that. So when we think about kingdom and empire, we're raised in empire language. It's what we know, it's how we were taught, it's how we're trained, it's how we see God. And until Jesus comes on the scene, we don't have a way to know that as kingdom. And so we have to see an exact representation of the invisible that. And that's what Jesus says. And if you don't lift this up, nobody comes to that. That's what Jesus said. If you don't lift me up, nobody comes to the Father. Why? Because I am the Father. I am who the Father is. I represent the Father in the only way you'll ever see him without dying. So Jesus becomes the one you bow your knee to. That one. And that's the way, and that's the truth, and that's the life. And you will never understand that kind of ontological, unconditional love unless you see it acted out in that. We love that because he first loved us. It's the only way humans love, is that they were loved first. Remember that. Humans don't love what didn't love them first. But why? How do we know he loved us first? Because he demonstrated his love to us, and that while we were his friends, his doctrinal buddies, no, while we were hostile to him and his enemies, Christ died for us. That's how we know what he's really like. That's how we know. And that, because of Christ, we can never doubt who he really is. Yeah. And what does he do with enemies? And what does he do with prostitutes? And what does he do with all the people I don't like? And what does he call them, all these people out here? He calls them neighbor. Yeah. That's what he calls them. Oh, you need my neighbor. You mean your neighbor? You mean the human being that's your neighbor? That guy? Is that who you're talking about? Like this? How long has Satan been telling you who that is? Do you see that? So, when we're thinking about what we're going to talk about today, strategies and ways to think about business and all of that great stuff, and we own a business. Donna basically owns a business. I kind of follow her around and do stuff with her, but she runs it. And I was asking her this morning. I was like, "Remember the first time that we had the idea for identity exchange as an actual business?" It was her idea, so that's what I was asking her if she remembered. And we were sitting in a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, and we wrote it on a napkin, which she still has, the napkin. And that little idea of what it would be, and then one day, do you remember this? I know she does. I always say, "Do you remember?" It's because I forget it. But I came home one day and she said, she was nervous, and she said, I want to tell you something. And I'm like, okay. She said, "I'm kind of nervous to tell you this." And I said, "I've never stopped you before. But go ahead." And she said, "I feel like I just need to run this and you just need to do what I say." Right? So I got the Bible out. Because I have a lot of fuel to say no to that. No, actually what I said was, "Thank God." I don't know how to do it. And she did. And she gave life to what was on that. Yeah. And all I did was untie knots along the way. And I can't even describe to you what has happened. I can't even begin to tell you what has happened. Business-wise, well, I know these people in here because of it, all of that. And so we want to talk about, and I can tell you exactly how it worked, and I'll just tell you this one thing before I jump. I just want to show you something in the scriptures. But at one point, we were kind of ready to go. You know, we had our 10,000 hours of work. Let me tell you, you'll do this without a ton of work. I have never seen God just go bing and you do it. Never. That's a lie. Yeah. That is a big lie from the enemy. His work, everything, God has processes that he works through, and they're beautiful. Mitch talked about them last night, the different courses that phase him out. And that was funny because we were Don and I were laughing looking at that map because I don't know how many times I've been lost on the white level of that. I had to go home and do inner healing about the Base Mountain Trail system. But the work. So we've been doing this for years and years and years and years. By the time we got to Portland, Oregon, as Derek heard, lots of failure. I went through rehab. It was a lot of stuff to work through, and that's the journey. That's what God wants. Mitch was saying it last night. He's follow me, and I will make you to become this. That's it. Follow. Believe and follow. Believe and follow. That's kind of the pattern of Jesus. Believe what I say, now follow me into it. Like that's what he's doing. And you fall down and you get off course and you stop and you go backwards and he just stays right with you. Come on. Come on. I was telling Donna this morning, I was like, there were so many times when I was not in my right mind from substances, and I could still feel Jesus next to me going, you need to stop this. Let me know when you're ready to stop this, because when you're ready, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And it took years before I would say yes. But he was always right there. And I would look at him and go, no. I don't know how many times I told him no. And he didn't leave me though when I said no.
Yeah.
He would just go, all right. And then when we read the Bible, that's what he does. And there's Jesus, whom Peter denies. He even warned him. And when he did, he's like, are you ready? Now? Okay, go lead, because that's your identity. It's been your identity the whole time. The only person that didn't believe it was you. So, in that process, and as we're on that journey, as we're going on that journey, that whole journey, when we got to this one point, and we were in Seattle, I think, I spoke at this event, and this guy comes up to me. I have no idea who he is, and he said, man, I love what you said. This needs to get out in the world. I want you to meet with me tomorrow. I said, we can't meet tomorrow. I promised Donna that we would drive down and see the redwoods, and I can't do it. He said, it's really important that we meet. I want to help you with this company that you're dreaming about. Nope. Listen to this correct answer. No. We're driving down there because I need the timeless life giver. We can't do this without the timeless life giver, and plus she's really in charge. I'm not in charge. It's documented on a napkin that I'm not in charge. And so I kept saying no, and he said, I just said, I'm going to drive down there. He said, do you know how far that is? No. He said, it's going to take you 2 days to do that. I want to talk to you right now. And I said, do that. I'm going. And he goes, okay, just wait a second. He makes a phone call. He comes back to me and he says, okay, my pilot and my jet will be at the airport to fly you down there. And it was our anniversary or your birthday? Anniversary. And so I'm like, Don, guess what I'm doing for your birthday? You gotta know how to use this. Drive down there. You're more important to that than flying on our own jet. She knew right away. You're not telling the truth, are you? Anyway, so we drive to this airport. There's a jet with the pilot. He walks us on, get on the plane. There's gifts, brand new camera. Fly down there. There's a car waiting for us. Drives us off. Anyway, this is the level of the person. We come back. And we go meet with him. He says, I love what you're saying. I want to put this thing on the map. Here's the people I've called. He lists all these celebrities that he's already contacted. I'm flying them in here. I want you to meet, explain what you're doing, and you need, I don't even know the amount he said, more than millions. He said, you need $3 million. Well, I'm putting it in it right now. Let's do it. So me and Donna leave, and I say to Donna, and I said, this isn't the right guy, is it? And she said, no way. So we had a dinner with this guy to tell him no. He couldn't believe it. He just stared at us like, are you through rehab or are you still in it? Like, what's going on here? You're saying no to this? And we said no. And there was another guy that we knew that was watching us in this process. who knew the guy that flew us all over the place. So we said no. We said no. We walked away from the whole thing. It's just not how, we don't need that. We don't need it. One of the guys at training used to always say to me, you want it, but you don't need it. We want you, but we don't need you. I don't think we need you. So this other guy was observing this whole thing, and he met with us, and he said, I know that guy. He said, I'm so proud of you for turning it down. He said, because what you guys need is not that. You don't need a board. You need a team. He's a board. You need a team. He said, if you ask me to be on your board, I'll say no. But if you ask me to be on your team, I'll say yes. And I'll give you $25,000. And that's all I'm going to give you. That's all you need. And I'll be on your team. And he launched us. Isn't that cool? So what do you want? Empire or a kingdom? A board or a team?
Yeah.
Those are different words. And so if you're going to grab, you're going to lose. You're going to hear this in the sessions that you're in today, I promise you. These people that are going to talk to you about like this. So I want to look at one thing in Scripture. And then as I'm doing this, if you have a question, just raise your hand, okay? And I'll see you and not respond. So I've been researching this topic for a long time. This is a book I'm writing currently, and I've been working on this a long time. And so this is just one of the topics right here. And what this is, all these pages are just the bibliography of the research on these two, on the thing I want to talk about. So I just wanted to show that to you because that's not the way to think about how I'm going to think about this. I want to think about this the way that God communicated this to humanity, and he didn't do it in bibliography. He did it in story. And so, which is important. And so, and the person who tells the story that I want to talk about is Moses. It's Moses telling the story. So when you think about, and we talk about this all the time here at Christ Fellowship, when you're reading Genesis, when you're reading the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and then forward, but mainly the first 5 books, the question is, where did those books come from? Like, who wrote those books? If you're thinking about it. And if you grow up in church, I can't remember. God wrote it, I think, is what I heard. God wrote it. Okay, and then you're like, okay. And you think that until you're 50. And then someone says, my grandmother was, Abraham was the first Christian. I'm like, okay, that makes perfect sense. And then you realize, actually, it wasn't. So where did the Torah come from? And so you can read all the documentation. There's kind of 2 views. One is, it's from Moses for sure, but how did Moses get it? Like, how does he know all this stuff? Because Moses is telling the whole book of Genesis. The whole thing, all the into Exodus, but the whole book of Genesis, he's talking, he's telling the story. So where did he learn it? If he learned it, and so some people say it was passed down from Adam. They were kept telling it all the way through. Another one is that Methuselah was so old he knew it all. It's kind of hard to believe all that, I don't know. But the other is that God communicated it to him and he told it. He told the story. I like that one. So in his time with the Lord, he's having this interchange, this listening clearly. And the thing that you want to see when you're reading Genesis and forward is that what God is communicating to Moses is not Bible stories. He's not communicating Christian life. Right? He's not saying, this is how you live a moral and upright life. He's telling a group of slaves how to start and run a country that will change the world. That's what there's no line. He is instructing them in governance, in Levitical practices, social order. Do you have an army or not? All of that. And we're arguing over, was the first day 24 hours or not? Like, that's the kind of dumb stuff we get into and miss the whole beauty of what the thing is doing. If you want to know how to run foreign policy that works, there it is. If you want to know how to run a country that's instructed never to become an empire, they are told you are never to become an empire. Why? Why do you think? Why? Why?
Because you'll trust in being in the empire.
Empire's false.
Right, okay, right, the empire's false. You'll trust in empire, which is exactly what they're going to do. And you'll say, we want our own president or king. We don't want to listen to you anymore. Yeah, but that's a bad person. Yeah, but at least they're here. At least they're going to do what I want. They're going to kill everybody else, but at least they're going to do what my team wants. Remember this? You are to be a what on a hill? Like, why? So all the empires can look and go, there's another way to do this.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
better than anything we've ever seen.
That's right.
That's why. But if you become an empire, you're just like them. But they didn't know how to do it. Never seen it before. So you talk about a creative process. Moses goes up and down that mountain 8 times. You talk about a creative process, quiet time. That's what's happening. And it's like, it's funny. I forget who said this, N.T. Wright or something. He said, we take all the parts of the scripture that are not intended to be literal and make them literal, and all the parts are literal that we should be paying attention to, we don't pay any attention to them. This is a literal quiet time that Moses is having with God. And he is coming up with, in this time, however it's being communicated, but we know when he sees the burning bush, Calvin, Luther, all the church fathers say this, anytime you can see God, it's Christ. Let me say that again. Anytime in all of Scripture where you can see God, it's the incarnate one. So when he meets the burning bush, he is having a personal encounter with the incarnate Christ, who is pointing him to Yahweh. How does he know the way to that? Through the Christ. This is the way. About what? How to liberate your people. This is the way to talk to Pharaoh. This is the way to organize all this stuff. This is the creative process, is Moses in a conversation with the God he can see, who's pointing him to the one he can't see, who's even greater. Do you see that? What's the way, the truth, and the life right there? Well, because no one can know that apart from this. Moses is out there. He's given up his incredible degrees and training in nation building and statesmancraft to take a job as a goat herder. In life, there are so many goat herders that should be nation leaders. And there's so many kids sitting in school who are world changers who think that they're no good at math, so it's over. Or they didn't get into the right school, so it's over. Where did they learn that? From us, the empire. Right? And so they're going to take on a job as a goat herder. And God's like, let me know when this is less than what you could do in life. And we're like, no, I don't think so. Do you like goat herding? After everything you've experienced in life? No, I hate it, but I killed a guy. So the belief is, oh my gosh, the belief is you made a mistake and now God has sentenced you to a life of paying that back. Where did you get that? From the lie. I'd love to go do that, but you don't know what I did in my life and I can't get out of it. Another one of my friends, when he's talking to people, he'll say, tell me what you're dreaming about. And they'll tell him, and he'll go, now tell me all the reasons why you're never going to do that. And they all know why. They all know. How do we know they know? Because they're using them to never do that. Wow, where did you learn that? Who told you you can't do that? This is the lie. So Moses is going to tell these people whose identity, interestingly, they got their identity from the marketplace. These slaves, they got their identity from the empire. And the empire said, your identity equals your ability to produce for the marketplace. Let me say their identity again, because this is the exact identity we're teaching our kids and that we learned. Your identity comes from your ability to produce in the marketplace, which means it's not God deciding your identity, it's the marketplace deciding your identity. Because you might come up with something that the marketplace doesn't want, and therefore you are not successful. You are a failure. We tried it, we failed. Who said you failed? My bank account. Oh, that God. Or those people over there said they don't want this, so they don't want me. I'm the unwanted one. You see that? That's the empire giving identity to everybody. And all of us agree. We all have to agree with it. So, but what if you go into wherever you go, and the metric for why you're there is spiritual transformation of whoever's next to you? What if that's the goal? That's the kingdom. But what happens when that person gets transformed next to you? They discover who they really are. Now there's two of you. And two dreaming together, like me and Donna, is quite powerful. And then a third identity, add a third identity, the other person on your team comes into it, and you start dreaming together in your true identity. Okay, now we're on the way. We're not trying to win the company. When was that ever the goal? Who made that the goal? That's not the goal. The goal is transformation. And Jesus is showing you. Remember when Jesus said, look, here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to rent. Let's rent the Colosseum. And let's get as many people as we can to come. And we'll have a big rally. And we'll all cheer and yell out Torah verses out loud. And we'll just do that in every city. Why didn't he do that? Why didn't he set up that strategy? I mean, he doesn't, so why do you think he didn't? Did what? It doesn't work. Why do we have that strategy? Who told us that strategy? Yeah, who told us that strategy? Empire told us that strategy. And it doesn't work. We can talk about that later, but it doesn't work. And we love it. Why do we love that?
Entertaining.
It's entertaining. Feels important. Powerful. Because there's so many of us. And on Monday, none of us will ever be together again. And we'll be right back into the same life on Thursday. Because the lie doesn't care about big rallies. What the lie cares about is one person who understands who they really are.
Yeah.
Haven't you noticed that strategy from Genesis all the way through the whole thing? And then 5, and then 10. And, like the house church in China says, their identity is termites. We are termites. We are never seen. We never draw attention to ourselves. We eat and we multiply.
Yeah.
And one day, the facade of the empire collapses because they never knew we were even there. But now we run the whole thing. That's influencers. It's not about look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's about don't pay any attention to me. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and what will the Lord do? He'll lift you up. He'll lift you up. Moses is telling this story, and I want to like these. It's like case studies. You know, that's the way to think about it. So if you're in anything, if you're a lawyer, if you're in the military, if you're in the police department, if you're in business, you look at case studies. That's what you do. You look at case studies and who did what, how did it work, and did they fail, and that's what you do. It. You look for precedents, and then you build off of it. And so read the Bible that way. Read it that way. Here's what they did. Here's what they did wrong. What did they believe about themselves? Just read it like that. Not like this, wait a second, was that literally an hour? Like, the enemy's like, I would really focus on that. And then what I would do is I would argue with we defend the 1 hour. But it's a case study, and you're reading the case study, and the question is, what is the kingdom doing here, and what is the empire doing here? Just do that. The empire is the lie, and the kingdom is the truth. What's the truth? The thing is about the truth is there it is. The truth is right there. So in the scriptures, in the Old Testament, what's happening? What do they believe? Does it work? Why doesn't it work? And so when you're watching these people in action from all different cultures, different genders, different socioeconomic statuses, you can find a case study for anything you're ever going to run into. But it's not exactly the same. That's why we need the Holy Spirit. To say, what about now, though? What's my identity? What about now? What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do in the present tense? But this is, the reference is the scriptures, but then the true word is Christ, the Spirit, the Trinity. Right? So here's our text, here's our case studies, and then we take them to Christ in our current situation, and we submit and fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross for you, so don't ever lose hope. We love him because he loved us first. Don't forget that he loves you. How do you know he loved us first? How do you know? He demonstrated it while we were his enemies. He was standing there going, let me know. Let me know when you want to be well. Let me know when you stop being afraid of everything. Let me know. I'm right here. I've been here the whole time. Let me know when you want to know how to transform that whole industry. Because I can tell you how to do it. But let me know when you want to stop trying to be the one. Like that. And so we get to read these case studies. So what I want to focus on here is Joseph. So imagine that Moses is telling the story of Joseph. If you know the story of Joseph, Genesis in the chapters 40 sort of onward. And Joseph is the transition from everything into the Exodus. So Joseph is the story of Joseph is the culmination of all of the book of Genesis. He's the culmination story, and he's how did we get into the situation in Exodus? That's who Joseph is. And it is super interesting. But we've been raised to think about Joseph in a certain way. And once you're taught to see a thing a certain way, it's very difficult to see it any differently. This is what hurts us. And then when we go to question it, it means something's wrong with me. So it's a beautiful trap that the enemy loves. Can't get out of that trap because if you question this because you're disrespectful, you're disobedient, you're questioning the veracity of the Bible. Jesus never says things like that, the enemy says. The enemy accuses. Jesus never accuses. Any voice in your head that's an accusation, let me say that again. Any voice in your head that is an accusation is not the Spirit of God. We live so much of our day listening to accusation, thinking it's God. And it's not. I don't know how many good people I've seen step away from what they're doing because they were accused of being too proud. And when they tell me, I'm like, who said you're proud? Who said that? Did you have a dream? Jesus is like, wow, you're really proud. Did he do that to you? First of all, he wouldn't. It's not what he does. But did some person accuse you of that? Ask someone you love that has no agenda for you. They would have probably already told you. Did they tell you? No. Well, who said you're proud? Well, I just feel, here comes the lie. And they'll step away from what they're doing to be humble. The enemy is super smart, super clever, so wise. When you read the whole Bible, all the case studies, which famous person in the Bible was not totally fooled by the enemy? Which one? None of them except Christ. None of them. So what, are you the one that's going to do it? Like, that's one of the warnings of the scripture. You know, the man after God's own heart. Yeah, totally got him. Totally got him. John the Baptist. I think we're looking at the wrong one. That's what he said about Jesus. Maybe we got the wrong one. John the Baptist. You announced him. Now you're thinking you were wrong? Where is that thought coming from? From the empire that put him in jail. Oh, maybe the empire is more powerful than that guy. Why? I wouldn't be in jail if he was the real deal. That's not true. Where'd you get that lie from? If he was for me, I would be wealthy and successful. So if we look at Joseph, so I'm going to just I want to tell this in the context of something that we're working on, just to show you how this works. So Joseph, you can go read this story and study yourself. You can look through all the passages. What I have right here is the debate about Joseph by different scholars, about Joseph's character. I was raised that Joseph is a typology of Jesus. That's how high level he is. He's like Christ. And just think, if you got his resume at a marketplace thing, like Joseph, wow, came from a good family. His brothers humanly trafficked him. Wow. But he survived. That's impressive. And then he got in the country where he was trafficked. He becomes slightly prominent, and then he gets into the Me Too movement. And then he gets accused falsely by this powerful woman, and he's sent to prison, and he's there for all these years, and he's patient, and he's persistent, and he doesn't get bitter. It's amazing. It's incredible. And he's a man of integrity, and one guy, they betray him in prison and all that stuff, and then one day he gets an opportunity, and he takes the opportunity because he lives in forgiveness, and he's not bitter, and so opportunity opens up, he interprets the dream, God helps him understand the dream, he interprets for Pharaoh, and now he is the number 2 leader of the Egyptian, what's the next word after Egyptian? Empire. And we would have him as the main Christian speaker at everything we do. Why? Because he's number 2 in the empire. That's like, who else? What do you want to have some guy that gets murdered out in the field as your speaker who didn't really accomplish anything? Would you have him as your speaker? And you got put on trial of the empire and they murdered him. That's the end of him. Why? We want this guy. He's rich. He's good looking. Like, let's get him. Who wants to go to a seminar on how to die? Who would do that? So the empire runs all the seminars. Right? And so Joseph, so that's his life, that's just the way we know it. So, but then, however, though, when you start reading the story like, wait a second. Like, what did Joseph really do? What did he really do? And you start reading the story, and you find out, as you read it, you can read this in Genesis 43, when Joseph goes to interpret, I'm not questioning Joseph's character at all, I'm just saying, when the door opens for you to move forward, are you going to move forward in order to see people's lives transform, or are you going to move forward to be number 2 in the empire? You can be, and Joseph, I'm sure he was internally a super spiritual guy. I'm sure he had amazing quiet times. But my question is, what was his influence level on Pharaoh? The reason we're asking that is because down the road, you're going to have Daniel do the exact same thing, but very different result.
Yeah.
So then we go read the case study of Daniel. Trafficked, sold, into captivity. He's young. Goes through this process. By the way, I was just writing this down. One thing the empire does immediately to people is takes away their identity and gives them an empire identity.
Yeah.
So here, so Joseph's name means God will add. What's here? Listen to this. Oh, man, this story is so beautiful. His Egyptian name So he has a kingdom name. He also has an empire name. His empire name is Zephanath Paneah. Where they get Panera from? No, they don't. I'm just kidding. Anyway. Zephanath Paneah. So he goes from God will add to he who deciphers the hidden. That's his empire identity. He's the one that can figure out how to make us rich and powerful. That's what his name means. That's what they call him. The one who can figure out what's hidden in order that we all become more powerful. That's exactly what he does. God will add to he will figure out the secrets and make us powerful. We don't need God, we need him. Daniel's name means God is my judge. Belteshazzar means Baal protects the king. See that shift? It's a whole shift in the way you see the world. It's a worldview shift. And so what the empire does is takes away your kingdom identity and gives you an empire identity that takes the focus off of God and puts it on you or another God. That's what's happening. And the scriptures are like, look at this, pay attention to this. Has the empire given you a name? Because it will. Yum, yum, yum. It'll be a name like, you're not enough. God doesn't show up. It'll be those kinds of names. They're empire names, and we take them. And the God-given identity, we either never knew it or can't accept it. We actually could come even to despise it. So we could study that forever. Just that. What happens when the empire gives you an identity? When the empire gives Joseph identity, he moves in it. He moves in the empire identity. I'll show you how in just a second. When the empire gives Daniel a name, he rejects it.
Yeah.
He rejects it. And he does it very skillfully. Because he rises to the same level of prominence as Joseph. But there's a big difference of what happens when he's up there at the top versus when Joseph's up at the top. Big difference, right? When Joseph hears the dream, Joseph interprets it, the dream about the famine that's coming, the years of plenty and the years of famine, and he gives God the credit for being able to know the dream. He does. So I'm saying Joseph is a good guy. He's a great guy. But he's an empire guy. And so if we did inner healing on Joseph, all the way back to when he's young, Joseph has a dream. Remember his dream? And his dad loves him more than everybody else, and it's made known to the brothers that we love him more than you. And then Joseph has a dream, and in the dream he dreams that everyone's going to bow down to him. It's a very kingdom dream, but he interprets it as empire. Did you hear that? So the enemy can listen to your dream and turn it into empire. A kingdom dream that becomes empire. How do you know? Nobody's transformed. You're a great guy. They all say about Joseph, that dude believes in God. That guy has all kinds of integrity. You know his history? All the Egyptians. You know he has a man of integrity. He's a man of integrity. Well, let's go enslave another country. That's what they're doing. They're enslaving the world. And Joseph's number 2 in the enslaving empire. But all his co-workers are like, man, that guy, I think he really loves God. Yeah, good. We don't care. We don't care. He doesn't. When he's young, he tells the dream to his brothers. Why? There's an issue going on inside little Joseph. Joseph, we need to learn not to say things this way. Because it's not meant to put over top of your brothers. Because if you take a gift God's given you and you use it to empower yourself, they will hate you. Here's how Paul says it. Here's how he says it. If you have the gift of tongues, if you know all languages, if you have all knowledge and God's given it to you, and that's amazing, if you even have the wherewithal to throw yourself into a fire in sacrifice for God, if you have all of that and you do any of it without love, not only is it an irritant to the people around you, it is a waste of time. That's how strong. If you take all of this kingdom stuff and turn it empire, it doesn't work. It won't work. And so Joseph's like, man, I had a dream from God. You guys are all going to bow down to me. I just wanted to share that with you. Just get ready. You practice now if you want. Basically what you want. And it had a bad effect on him. So his brothers, they don't like him. And it says, this is what it says, that when Joseph would come near them, they would have no shalom. That's what it says. They would have no shalom. Who took the shalom away from them? Who took the shalom away from their relationship? He didn't mean to. He's telling the truth. He's saying the truth. Yeah, but don't say that truth right now. Because if you loved them, you wouldn't say it like that. Just let God do it. Just let him do it. You stay on like that. And so it builds up this animosity, and then, they throw him in a pit and all of that stuff. And of course, the beauty is, as Joseph knows, God works it all together for good. That's the beauty of God. He doesn't sentence you to a life penalty for mistakes you make in your life. He doesn't do it.
Amen.
He doesn't do it. You are free. Yes. It is for freedom that Christ has set you free. I love that verse. So it's like if you said, God, why did you set me free? Do you know what his answer would be? So that you can be free. Yeah, but why? In order for you to be free.
Yeah.
To do what? To be free. Like that's not enough for us. Freedom's not enough for us. What do we got to do though? That's putting yourself back in bondage. Mm-hmm. And the whole church just jumps right back into bondage. Gotta be doing. No, you have to be free. If you're free, that identity will move where it's supposed to go. Free. And in that, you will seek the kingdom above all else, and all the rest of it will come with it. One of my friends said, I don't chase money, I chase the kingdom, but money chases me. That's that verse. So Daniel starts off rough, and there's like the story as Moses is telling it, because remember, Moses is trying to tell the Israelites how they got where they are. That's what he's telling, the whole story. Here's how you guys ended up here. Here's how we all ended up here. And here's how we're not going to do this again. We're not going to make this mistake again. But in order to not make the mistake again, we have to confess the lie we believed that got us here. And we didn't start believing this lie last year. We started believing this lie generations ago. And it's been passed down through the generations. And it started up high, and it ended up in slavery. The lie always goes that way. Always. You're up in Eden. So nice. But there's something missing. And then the lie comes in. Yes, this is great. This is great. But wow. What about that? What about that? I mean, if you had that would be it. And there's a lie, and the lie starts to seduce. It's very beautiful and seductive. And you start to believe it. You start to slide down the slope. And then I don't think God's going to give that to you. Do you know why? He's not going to give it to you. Because he's not that nice. He's kind of nice, mostly disappointed, kind of. He's not that nice. You're going to have to go get that on yourself. So you go to get it and down into the lie. Now you're down in the bottom of it. You realize what's happened, but the shame keeps you trapped. And you can't get out of the fear and the guilt and the shame now. And so you separate. And you live separate. And even from others. And they go and hide and they cover all that God has done. They cover it up. They're ashamed of it all. And do they work their way out of it? Do they memorize Bible verses out of it? Nope. Love comes and gets them.
Yeah.
And that's always the pattern. Love comes and it's like, what are you doing? Do you want to stop this right now? Because I'm right here. Let's go. But it's hard for him to receive his love after what we've done. Listen, they're not free to receive his love. They're not free to receive his love. It is for freedom that I have set you free. Free to do what? To be free to receive from me. You can't receive from me because you're so afraid and you're such a failure and you can't do it. Receive. That's the pattern. So Joseph, he gives the credit to God for the dreams, and he gets promoted into this position, and he tells Pharaoh how to manage the economy in such a way that Pharaoh becomes more powerful. And he knows that when Pharaoh becomes more powerful, he's made himself indispensable. Smart, he's very smart. I'm not saying he's not smart. But if we jump over to Daniel, and it's funny because when you're reading rabbinical history, they call Daniel the greater Joseph. That's how they refer to him. Daniel is what Joseph could have been. And that Daniel learned from Joseph. That's how they think about it. So Daniel, when they go to change his identity, he won't let him do it. And he finds something, he's so smart, he must have had great parents, really. He finds diet to be the place where he can maintain his identity. He's like looking around, where can I maintain my identity, still honor them? I'm not going to dishonor them. I want to honor them, and I want to serve them because God serves me. I want to serve them, but I'm not going to bow down to them. Is that interesting? I'm going to serve you, but I'm not going to bow down to you. Joseph bowed down to him. The way we know Joseph did is Joseph is no threat to Pharaoh's empire. Not one bit of a threat to what he's doing in the world. We have the number 2 advisor to a guy who's enslaving the world, and none of their foreign policy changes. In fact, Egyptians themselves begin selling their own kids into slavery because they can't afford the prices to go buy the grain that Joseph taught Pharaoh how to store. It says, Genesis 43, and the Egyptians sold their own children into slavery because they couldn't afford the prices for the grain. Who set up that economic system? Joseph. Now, you can read him and go, he's brilliant. He is brilliant. He's brilliant. It's brilliant what he did. Who did Joseph protect? Pharaoh and his own family. It's not stupid. Self-protection, self-promotion. It's not dumb what he did. And you can't blame him. I'm just saying, reading the case study, it's like, So, here we are, number 2 in the country. Now, the inside policy of the country is that because of the policy, listen to this, because of the economic policy inside the country, the people of the country are selling their own kids into human trafficking. Guess what is happening in the United States right now? Go read Nehemiah chapter 5. Nehemiah chapter 5 is they're building the wall, and same thing, you go to a men's retreat, what do you study? Nehemiah. Nehemiah had no idea the number of men's retreats he's going to lead. He had no idea. Why? Because they're rebuilding the wall, just like we're rebuilding the wall. What wall? Anyway, so they're rebuilding the wall, and they got the gun, the weapon, the guns in one hand, and the trowel in another. We want to shoot people out here and build up our own wall. It's like, that's the goal of Jesus, wasn't it? That was the plan right there. And so they're building the wall, and all of that's going on, and it's amazing. And Nehemiah is an amazing human being. Incredible. He wept for his people. He risked his reputation in his position in government. He did set up a tax structure that made everyone have to pay the king, but that's okay. I mean, that was his position. That's what he was doing. But when in Nehemiah chapter 5, they're building the wall, And then it says, and this is the key to the book of Nehemiah that is never taught. This is the center of the book. It says, there arose a protest that was so vitriolic, even the women were involved in the protest. Even the women were out public raising a protest. Protesting what? This is what they said. And Nehemiah doesn't know this is going on. It's the women, the Hebrew women and the men, there's a protest, and the protest is not against the captors, it's against their own wealthy population of their own people. And this is what they say. Because of the mortgages that you people make us pay, that we can't pay, and we're in them for life and we can't get out of them, we are selling our own kids into slavery. And the question of the book of Nehemiah is, why would God protect this system? That's the question in Nehemiah. Why are you building a wall to protect outsiders from coming into a culture where your own people are selling debt from their own people that they're selling their own kids into slavery? Why are we protecting that? Look at our country. Big rally in the stadium, Satan doesn't care. Change the economics? Now we're talking. So Nehemiah, listen to what he does. He calls the wealthy. Imagine that some believer doing this in our country. He calls the wealthy to him, and he says to them to do what Moses told them to do before they ever went to the land. Cancel every mortgage right now. Listen to what he's saying. Cancel every mortgage right now. And don't you ever put your own people into that kind of bondage again. Cancel it all. And he changed the entire economic system. And he made them come, the rich, come and swear to the Levitical priesthood that they would never do that again. And can you imagine someone, a leader in our country, standing up and saying, cancel every debt out there? Do you know what we would do to him? Do you know what the Christians would do to that guy? Do we not read this book? Are we not paying attention to these stories? It's like, this is exactly what Moses is telling the Israelites. When you go in that land, do not do what Egypt did to our people.
Yeah.
And put them in such bondage, they got to sell their kids to buy food. And who instituted that policy? We did. We put ourselves in our own bondage under the empire who has no authority over you at all. But you give that authority. And you play by its rules. And you know what happened? And so it's like, wow, Joseph was amazing. And then he got his whole family into this super wealthy, nice, gated community called Goshen Heights or something like that. And it's like, and it had a code at the gate where you go in, and it was beautiful, and they were in the fertile place, and they were all there, and God's favor was on them. And the whole time the enemy's going, keep coming this way. Keep coming. That's great. Yeah, keep coming. Don't stop what this country's doing to the rest of the world. Don't stop that. Don't influence them. Just enjoy the benefit of what you've received. Don't change any policies. And slowly, they end up as slaves in the system. It's an incredible story. It's an incredible warning to us. All of these stories are. We're not paying attention to them because we read the Bible like the empire reads the Bible. Not like the kingdom reads the Bible. Daniel, Joseph is rewarded by the empire. Daniel, the empire tries to kill him. And tries to kill Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The empire doesn't like Daniel. The empire doesn't like the three. But they're so valuable to the people that the empire can't get rid of them, and God keeps protecting them. Right? And so Daniel is like, listen, you read the whole story of Joseph, you never once ever see Joseph pray. His entire life, he never prays. I'm sure he does, but in the way the story is told, he's not a person of prayer. He's a person who knows God's running things, but he's not like on his knees prayer guy. Daniel is.
Yeah.
And Daniel's like, I'll be better than anyone you guys have in government. I'll know Babylonian literature better than any of you. I'll speak Persian better than any of you. I'll go to your best university and be the highest student. But I will never bow my knee to you. I will only publicly bow my knee to the true God. And that is my standard. And as long as that works, I will serve you in every way. That is a kingdom employee. But I'm making no bones about how this works. And so the empire's got to get rid of him. He's a threat. But he's a blessing. Like he's not the guy, he's not the guy with the desk that has the cross, the flashing cross on his desk. That just everyone wants to kill, and even the Christians are like, yeah, we should probably get rid of that guy. But you're not agitating and doing stuff without love. Daniel is so tight in his relationship with the Lord, he knows what to do. He knows, what do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? When they come to him and say, listen, you're going to lose your job unless you stop praying publicly, he's like, too bad. Take the job.
Yeah.
Take the job. And when you have that kind of attitude, God is like, I will put you in a nice position with that attitude. Do you see that? Seek first the kingdom. Seek first the kingdom and you'll live under a bridge of poverty. No. Seek first the kingdom and everything will come.
Yeah.
All these things will be added unto you. All the kingdom things. But if you seek to self-protect and self-promote, not you might be okay, but the whole rest of the thing is going to end up in bondage. Because the empire is not afraid of you. But it is afraid of your relationship with God.
Yeah.
So Moses is telling the Israelites, do you want to know how we got here? We used to be in charge. We used to be in charge. Look at us today. You know why that is? Because we sold ourselves to the empire. That's why we're here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go and do it again. And we're going to start a new nation. And in the new nation, we're never going to seek to be an empire. We're not here to rule the world. We're not here to control the world. We're here to influence the world. And once you're empire, you don't influence. You control. And how do you do it? Power and authority. But when you're an influencer, you serve, you love, you die for them, and influence the whole thing. We have the option. Do you want to rule with power and control? Do we want to be in a country that wants to rule with power and control? Or do we want to be in a place that influences the world with love? What do you, as we're thinking, God, where are you inviting me into this? It's an invitation. It's an invitation. We got to sit down because of what we're doing with Boston Media. We got to sit down with the Ministry of Education folks from Israel. This before even Gaza happened, right before that, and even after, and they said to us basically, this is a purely vocational question on their side. Can you give us a curriculum, an educational curriculum, that would get us out of the way that we are in the world right now? We don't know how to do it. Can you give us a curriculum that we can forget the generation now? We're going to have to go to the next generation and try and start something new, because this is never going to end. And this is before Gaza happened, so now they're like, please help us. What can we teach the next generation that will end this? Now we're believers. Every one of us in this room should say, we know exactly how to do that. We should be, unless all we know is empire too. And here's our question. Our problem is we have Orthodox Jews that don't like secular Jews and secular Jews that don't like Orthodox Jews. And then we have Arab Israelis who hate both of them. And then we have Muslims who are Palestinian, who are inside of Israel, born in Israel, but they, we have them over here. And we've got the whole Ethiopian population that we brought in to assimilate that didn't. They're all over here in a ghetto. Is there a curriculum that all of them would come in the same room and read together and be changed by? Is there? Do you know what our answer was? Yeah, it's called the Torah.
Yeah.
That's what we said to them. And they're like, our Torah? Yeah. Like, you guys are the only ones that have it. Yes, definitely. And so we did for them, we didn't write the curriculum. It's in the Bible. We took the story of Moses, just like I told you, and we wrote it in a curriculum, gave it to, this is how different identities work. We gave it to Vossler Media, and they produced it into this stunning, we'll show it to you at some point, presentation. And then the Israelis came to the US, and we pitched it to them at the same time that we were with the group of a massive denomination from the US, was in the same room when we did it. And we showed them the story of Moses. And they watched it. And they had to watch it several times to get it. And they're like, this is the Torah. This is what it says. This is what it means. And we're like, yes. And they're like, we have to have this. And the thing is, the Muslims could sit in the room because we've done it with the Muslims. And they're like, this is the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. And the Orthodox loved it because it was the Torah. And the secular guys loved it because it made perfect sense in real life. And the Muslims loved it because it honored the prophets that they revere. And they were all sitting, and the thing that drew them together was kingdom.
Yeah.
One word of empire, that ring would have fractured into war, back to where they are. Now, when we present that for Vossler, for us, we're a company. This is what we do. This is our for-profit company. What's our measurement of success? Transformation.
Yeah.
And we're watching the people in the room transform. We're not preaching Christianity, we're saying this is what's true. And this is what could be said in that scenario. The people from the Christian denomination, equally affected. This is the Bible. This is the Bible. Like that. So, like Mitch said, there's no line. There's no line in any of it. It's all the same thing. As you go through today, I want you to think about kingdom empire. Kingdom empire. God, what are you inviting me into? Because you're going to listen to kingdom people talk who are really, really good at what they do. They're really, really good at what they do, and they are kingdom. And they can tell you, not only in their own lives, but in the people that they're dealing with, the transformation they're watching happen all the time. And they will tell you, I'm sure, how much the lie has gone to destroy them. And how they have stood because God is able to make you stand. And they've all been in the furnace, but they've never been alone in the furnace. Right? And so I'm excited for what you're going to do. Get in there, ask them a lot of questions, get them to tell their stories, but you keep asking, God, what is my identity? What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? And think kingdom versus empire, kingdom versus empire. Father, thank you for this group. Pour your spirit out on this day. Thank you for the scriptures. Oh my gosh, Lord. Thank you for the Bible. Thank you for the depth of what it is that we'll never fully understand. Thank you that Jesus is the Word of God. That every knee will bow and every tongue will confess, not to the Bible, to Jesus. The living, the real Word of God, and confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God. Why? Because He is the demonstration of the love of the Father that can never be questioned. And the gift of the Spirit, Lord, to guide and to lead and to challenge and critique and energize and give wisdom and all the things. And so, Lord, we are excited today to be invited again into what you're doing in our lives. And this is what you want, transformation. Transformation that begins in me and spills out into the person next to me. And as Mitch said, just be the one. Be in the one place with you. We bless you. We give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.